All right, welcome everyone. This is our final session. I can't believe it's already at the end. And this is for our primary behavior community of practice, session number 5. And so, Christine, if you'll go ahead and just jump to that next slide. Once again, if you have any general comments or questions, go ahead and just put those in the chat. Or you can use the Jamboards, and I will put that in the chat here in just a second for you. I do want you to know, again, just like all of the other sessions, I will be sending out a follow-up email. We'll have the recording and all the resources. This time you are going to have a few extra things in that follow-up email, including an evaluation for all of this community of practice sessions, and also some information about our WAVE conference registration. And as well as if you are a teacher, a SPED teacher who has 3 years or less experience, you are welcome to join us this year at our new SPED teacher bootcamp. And that's going to be just right before our WAVE conference, July 29th and 30th. And then WAVE will be July 31st through August 2nd. So watch for that information. It will be coming out soon. Again, if you are joining in a group today, make sure you send me a sign-in sheet with first and last names, and also your email addresses that correspond with those names. All right. And then you can just go ahead and skip that Jamboard slide, Christine, because I'll put that in the chat for them. And so at this time, I know that Christine has some wonderful things, including a case study for you today. So I'm going to just go ahead and turn the time over to her so she can get started. Thank you so much for being here, all of you, and especially you, Christine.
Thank you, Dina. I appreciate it. How is everybody today? It's our last session for the primary session. So we're going to have a lot of chat activity today. So hopefully you guys will join in and type some things in the chat. So let me know how you are. It was so awesome last year. Yes, the WAVE conference and the SPED conference. Awesome. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and get started, but today we're just going to review what we've talked about for the last few weeks, and then we're going to successfully complete a case study. So I really want you guys to make sure that you're participating in the chat, because that's going to help us all learn, and hopefully I'll give you guys enough time to think and respond in that chat. The chat. So we're going to review. So these are the things that we've talked about. So these are the presentation details, but not all of the things that we covered in there. So we covered classroom management strategies to improve overall student behavior. We covered supports for students who engage in power struggles, defiance, lack of motivation, and non-compliance. We gave several tools in there for teachers. We covered data collection and how to use appropriate data to drive decisions, right? Because we want to do something with that data for behavioral and functional behavior. And then we decided how we learned how to determine the function of a behavior, and also what function matched interventions we could put in place to support students. All right, so today we're going to do a case study. So I want you guys to chat me in the chat box. Are you feeling ready for the case study? Yes or no, or thumbs up or thumbs down? How you guys feeling? Ready to apply some stuff? Let's see what you guys have to say. There's the Jamboards, maybe. That's okay. Absolutely. Let's go. I don't know what comedian says that, but fun. Yes, good. All right, so what I want you guys to know first of all is, Jessica, it's okay. What I want you guys to know first of all is this is a safe place. I've been a behavior analyst for a while. I've been working in schools with kids with behaviors for a long time, and I still make mistakes, or I still don't get things quite right the first time sometimes. And so I don't want you to feel like you can't put an answer in the chat because you're wrong, because we all start somewhere and we want to end in the right place. We might start from everywhere, and that's okay. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to read the case study to you. There's several slides, so I need you to pay attention, take pictures, take notes, whatever you want to do. But we're going to be looking for a few things here. So we're going to be looking for anything in the environment that may contribute to the child's behavior. We're going to be looking for specifically what behaviors of concern or problem behaviors we can take note of, and what the antecedents are, right? What happens prior to the behavior that may set the occasion for that behavior to occur. We also want to look at consequences. What happens after that behavior in that environment, right? What happens to the student? What happens in the environment? And let's talk about consequences. Then we're going to talk about function. And then we're going to put into place some antecedent and function matched interventions. So this is going to be a work session. So I hope you guys are ready to work a little bit. Please use the chat. I probably won't answer questions in the chat, but save those questions until the end. And then, like always, after we stop the recording, I'll stay on for a few minutes and answer any questions you may have. All right, so I'm going to start reading. There are several slides with information. So pay attention to the data that I mentioned before, so that when we get to the questions, we can answer them together. Okay, Dakota is an 8-year-old child in the 3rd grade general education classroom. Dakota's teacher reports she is often late to school and she does not eat breakfast prior to arriving. How many kids do we have that don't eat breakfast, right? Dakota may come to school with a Pop-Tart and or soda about once a week, but because she is late, she misses the breakfast that's provided by the school. Dakota's mom is a single mother and works the graveyard shift at her job and reports it is difficult for her to wake up to get Dakota to school on time. Dakota's father and other family members are not active in her life. Dakota struggles to engage in appropriate behavior throughout the school day. Staff report Dakota is receiving an F grade in most subject areas due to not being able to focus and is not motivated to complete her work. When assignments are given to Dakota, she will get out of her seat, walk around the classroom, and ask repeatedly to get a drink or use the restroom. So there are some behaviors right there. So take what notes you need to. The teacher will allow Dakota to get a drink and use the restroom one time during this work time. Then the teacher redirects Dakota to the worksheet. Dakota will continue to walk around the classroom and ignore the teacher prompts. Eventually, the teacher tells Dakota to put the worksheet in her backpack and take it home for homework. When classroom staff sends homework home with Dakota, it does not come back completed, despite repeated phone calls and emails sent home to Dakota's mother. This greatly contributes to her failing grades. Dakota does not have friends, and she struggles to engage in appropriate conversations and play during recess, transitions, and less structured times. She has hit, pinched, and pushed peers on multiple occasions this school year, so many students do not want to be her friend. She will chase other students during recess, pretending to be a monster who will eat them. Data show Dakota engages in the aggressive behaviors mostly during recess. School staff report there are only a few people who supervise recess, and they are generally volunteers with little to no formal training. When Dakota is aggressive at recess, she goes to speak with the principal, calls her mom, and writes a sorry note to the students that she hurt. All right, so here's where you guys are going to answer. No wrong answers, but think about the behaviors, the things that we can see, things that we can hear that Dakota is doing, and put them in the chat. What specific behaviors does Dakota engage in? Oh, sorry you got kicked out, Carrie. I'm glad you're here. Loss of focus, no motivation, physical behaviors, refusal, aggressive, avoidance. What do you see, Mila, that makes you think avoidance? What does she do when she's refusing to work or she's avoiding work? What behaviors can you see? Getting attention in a negative way. Okay, what do you see her doing? Wandering, good. Bathroom and drinks. So we don't want to jump right to the function of what we think she's doing or trying to get out of. We want to say what we see and what we hear, right? She gets up and wanders. Good, Holly. And asks for a drink or to use the bathroom. Good. All right, so Here we have, she's out of seat. I can see out of seat. She walks around the classroom. I can see walking around the classroom. I can see her asking repeatedly to get a drink or to use the restroom. So be careful. Remember back in our I don't want to say the first session, it was probably the third session when we talked about making sure that we have a very clear, objective description of behavior, right? So we don't want to say she's avoiding this, or she doesn't like the teacher, or she's ignoring the teacher, because we can't really see ignoring for sure, right? But you can see and or hear all of the behaviors that I listed here. So this was when she was given an assignment. There's also hitting, pinching, and pushing peers. That can be covered under the title of aggression, but there again, when we use aggression, we want to say exactly what we see and what we hear. So we see her hitting, we see her pinching, we see her pushing peers, right? So those are the things that we can measure. So going back to our week on data collection, we want to make sure that the behaviors are really well described so that we can take accurate data on those behaviors, right? So the first thing we're going to do is we're going to talk about, there's two different things going on here, right? We have, she's out of her seat, walking around, and all of those behaviors when there's an assignment given to her. And then we have some problems on the playground as well, where she's hitting, pinching, and pushing her peers. So we're going to take one at a time, and we're going to go through some of the questions that I sent you last week, where you can start writing and gathering information on your behaviors at your school. I did simplify it a little bit just for the sake of time, but we're going to work first of all with the out of seat, walking around classroom behaviors. All right, in the chat, what location does that behavior most often occur? So the out of seat, walking around the classroom, where is that happening? Yeah, in the classroom. Good. Yep, general education classroom. Good. Excellent. It is happening in the classroom. What is happening in the environment when the behavior occurs? So what's going on right in that environment? What is she given? There you go, Megan. Good. Given assignment, work, academic task, independent work. Good. It is structured time too. Excellent. Good answers, guys. She was given a worksheet, right? So here we come with more data. Are there any other environmental variables that you guys can think of that might affect Dakota's mood or affect her in that environment? Very good, Jessica. I love it. Hunger. Maybe she doesn't have enough attention, not eating breakfast, hungry, tired. Maybe something happened on the bus, right? So we know that she comes to school late, right? We know that her mom works the graveyard shift and can't get up to bring her to school on time. We know that she's not having breakfast, right? So she may be struggling with other environmental variables that we can't do anything about per se, right? If she was there on time, she might have breakfast. Right now, sometimes when she's eating something, it's junk. She's late for school, and her mom's a single mom that doesn't have any additional help. All right, what are any potential antecedents? So something that happens before the behavior of wandering and all of those things. What happens before the behavior that may set the occasion for that behavior to occur? Kind of already talked about this, so hopefully it's not a repeat. Yep, work. So entering late didn't happen right before the worksheet, but entering late is another consideration, but she was given the assignment. Good. So here we are. She was given a worksheet, right? Okay, so now think about the consequences that occur after the student engaged in the behavior. So the behavior is wandering around the classroom, right? Doing those things. And I'm just going to remind you guys that anything that happens after the behavior can increase the future behavior, it can maintain future behavior, or it can decrease future behavior. So when we're looking at consequences, we need to write down everything that we can remember that happened after that behavior. So after she walks around and wanders around, what consequences are there afterwards? Teacher lets her get a drink. She does get failing grades. That's right. What else happens? The teacher lets her, she gets to take work home. Yep, she gets to go to the bathroom and get a drink. She does get teacher attention. Seems pretty minimal though, right? She goes to the, okay, so Jessica, you're right. This is for the recess. So that's going to be the next part 2 of this. So hold on to that. Yes. Parent contact, that's for recess 2, I think. So hold on to that too, the parent contract. So what happens is the teacher allows her to use the restroom and get a drink, right? She also redirects Dakota to start working on her worksheet, right? So that's what happens exactly after. When we're looking at ABC data, we want to make sure that we are noticing the situation, things that happen or things that are said or done right before that behavior that may set the occasion for that behavior to occur. If you wouldn't have put the worksheet on her desk, would she have gotten up and wandered around? Maybe, but probably not. So that would be an antecedent. And then what happens right after? Well, right after, she gets redirected to work on her work. She does get to go to the bathroom. She does get to get a drink. And then eventually the teacher just says, take it home, right? So those are the consequences that are right in proximity to that behavior. All right, anything said or done by other people during that time, they tell her that she needs to take the worksheet home for homework. What do we know from the case study about homework that gets sent home with Dakota? Anybody remember? It doesn't get done, doesn't get returned, right? So then Dakota gets an F grade, and whose fault is that? I guess that's debatable, right? Whose fault that is. Yeah, okay. Okay. So what did the student gain access to or escape from by engaging in that behavior? What did they get or what did they get out of by that wandering behavior? Good. Escaped from work, got out of work. Yep. Yeah, so we're going to go with that one, right? Because even though the teacher said, take it home and bring it back, she didn't bring it back, right? And so she did escape successfully doing that work. She avoided her worksheet, right? So what is the hypothesized function of the behavior? What do you guys think it is? Escape, avoid, or attention, or sensory, or access to an item or activity. There you go. Good, Elizabeth. It's escape or avoid. Did she get her needs met to escape and avoid the worksheet? Yeah, you're right. Whoever said it might be good to consider what's going on with peers, you're right. And I think in a real context, we probably would if there were anything that were, that was standing out in that way, right? So good comment then. All right, so the hypothesized function of the behavior is escape from worksheet. So just taking the situation, the words that I gave you, not thinking about everything else that could be happening, right? And we know there's other things happening, and it's not that those things are not important, it's just that they're not in our case study this week. So we want to just look at the information that we have. And so with the information that we have, I would hypothesize that function of her wandering behavior to be escaping that independent work or that worksheet. Now, if I were taking data on her independent work or how many minutes she was engaging in independent work and she only would get up and wander during math, then that gives me more data, right? So maybe when she's doing a science worksheet or she's doing an independent project on another subject, maybe she does not engage in that behavior. Then you would have more data to say what's going on with that independent work in math. And then you could start asking yourself some more questions and digging deeper to find out what's going on for her to want to avoid that. Any other ideas as far as a hypothesized function? Does anybody else have with the content that was provided to you? Is there any other thoughts about a function that it could be? Remember, no wrong answers. We're working through this together. All right. So, the consequences provide her escape from the worksheet. And if that continues to go on and those consequences don't change, she's going to continue engaging in that behavior because the consequences are working for her. So the why or the function is escape. So she's engaging in behavior to escape the independent worksheet. If she gets out of it, then you've just given her the means to escape that worksheet. It doesn't come back from homework. It gets recorded as an F grade. She doesn't give a crud, right? Her mom might not either. A lot of our parents are in survival mode themselves, right? And so we have to make sure that we are looking at, if you remember from last time, we have to make sure that we're looking at all of the antecedents and the consequences. The antecedents we can put in place to prevent behavior from occurring. And then the consequences we put in place are to discontinue that behavior from occurring over and over again. And the answer to the consequence for this, I will tell you right now, is not keep redirecting her to the worksheet. That's not a consequence. That's going to get her to run out of the room without permission. The consequence is you sitting and helping her and figuring out why that worksheet is so difficult for her in the first place. And then helping her and meeting her where she's at, right? So if we just keep letting the kids get their consequence of escaping and avoiding, and we're not looking deeper into that problem, then we're not teaching anybody. We're letting them escape or avoid and then saying, well, you didn't turn in your homework, so you got an F grade. We have to work a little bit harder than that as teachers. And now you guys have a whole bunch of tools that you get to do that with. Okay, so what are some ideas for function matched interventions for escape and avoid? What could we do to help her escape or avoid appropriately? And there's no wrong answers here. We can talk about a few of them. So we want her to be able to escape or avoid something using different strategies besides the ones that she's currently doing. So instead of wandering, instead of asking to leave the classroom over and over, good, set her up with a partner. I love that. Pure, working with her, small group. You guys, those are great ideas. Yes. Anybody else? Talk through the assignment and work with her. Good, Mindy. Help her learn to ask for a break. Yes. Encourage her to ask for help. I love it, Crystal. Yes. So a lot of our kids, I have a son, he's 25, and he was on an IEP from young age, and he always had the goal, will raise his hand and ask for help. How many times do you guys think he actually did that in his 13 years of school? I'll tell you how many times he did it. It was 0, right? He had that goal every single year, but he didn't have the ability to ask for help. He didn't know what he needed help with. It was just too hard, right? And you hear that all the time. I love Courtney saying, provide the break to her after her work is completed. I love that, Courtney. And I think differentiating between a reinforcer and a break. So you do a little bit of work and you get a break, or do you do a little bit of work and you get something that might be a little bit more enjoyable than a break, right? Elena, give her some supports, put the answers on slips of paper and match them to the questions. I love it. Just have her do a couple of problems. I love that, right? Reduce the work that she's doing. Break the work into smaller sections. When I taught 3rd grade, I taught in a special education classroom that we had between 18 and 24 students, all on an IEP. And I had one paraeducator. It was very busy, but I learned a trick where you just took a file folder and you just cut it into thirds. And so you'd have door number 1, door number 2, door number 3, and you just told the kids to pick door number 1 or door number 2 or door number 3, and you just do the problems that you can see in that door, right? And you know what the kids were doing? They're like, okay, if I move the worksheet down a little bit or up a little bit, then I do less. That's okay, because we're getting them to do something rather than nothing, right? And we can build on that. So teaching her or giving her the help to ask for a break. That might not mean vocally. That might mean a B for break. That might mean putting a break card on the desk, but not saying any words at all, right? A lot of our kids, when they really do need a break, they have a hard time thinking of the steps to ask for a break because they're in pre-crisis, literally, right? And then to raise their hand, wait. I was in a classroom a couple of weeks ago where a kid was raising his hand for like 20 minutes. I finally went up to him and said, "Hey, bud, can I help you?" Because I felt so bad, right? He's like, "I really got to go to the bathroom." Oh my gosh, right? Like, when your kids raise their hand, address them, notice them. And even if you have to say, "Hey, right now is not the time for questions, but I'm almost done with the lesson, and then I'm going to get right to you," right? So that the kids can get their needs met if they have a need before, it's too late. Another one, asking for help. A lot of you guys mentioned for that. How does she ask for help? Maybe raising her hand and saying, "I need help." And then you go over and you say, "What do you need help with, Dakota?" And she's going to say what? She's going to say, "This is too hard. I can't do this." Or some rendition of that, 100%. And then you're going to say, "Well, what's so hard about it?" I've been in hundreds of classrooms, probably more than that. You hear this all the time. And I did it too, right? What's so hard about it? They don't know. And so really working with them to find out, is it that the questions are too convoluted and too close together on the page? Is it there are too many questions? Is it that they all involve reading and I can't read it and figure it out and then respond to it? That's a lot of mental cognitive processes that go into answering a question like that on a worksheet. It could be a lot of things you have to find out, guys. And that's going to mean you have to sit with the child and see what they can do and help them and meet them where they're at, right? Teach her how to communicate what she wants and needs. I didn't sleep very well last night, and so I'm just too tired. I'm sure there are days that you guys come to work and you guys are like, "Yep, I got everything. I killed it today. I did all of my tasks. I was happy. I turned everything in on time. My kids all have all their work done. I got through all my lesson plans," which I think in the years I taught, I never got through a full day without not doing something right. But, so our kids are the same way. Some days they can do more than others. Sometimes they have stuff going on at home, just like you do, just like I do, that affects their ability to do more on some days versus other days. And that's okay. How can we meet this child where they're at today? What do they need today? And then what do they need in the long run? What do they need to learn? What skills do they need to learn? Here's where you can adjust the assignment or modify the assignment in some way. This is not a special education thing. This is not an accommodation on an IEP. It can be, right? But it can also be that not all of our kids need to do the same amount and the same type of work every single day, right? Some of our kids have strengths in different areas. Some of our kids have better days than others. How can we modify or adjust the assignment today to meet Dakota where she's at, and then build on that for tomorrow? Instead of just redirecting her to the assignment and then having her take it home, then we've kind of failed as a teacher because we've just allowed her to get an F. And she's 8 years old, right? She can't even do that by herself anyway. Okay, so remember, we're going to put some antecedent interventions in place. Well, the antecedent was the worksheet. Remember, the antecedent is what happened right before the behavior that set the occasion for that behavior to occur. As soon as we gave the worksheet on her desk, she stood up and started wandering and engaging in those other behaviors. So the antecedent is the actual worksheet. And so we already talked about what are some antecedent interventions. So antecedent interventions that have to do with that worksheet. So we talked about modifications and accommodations. We talked about partner work, small group work. You guys had some really great ideas in there. And that is important. And then it's important that you collect data on what you did so that you can shape that behavior to a better behavior, right? She's not going to do one problem out of a 20 problem worksheet and then tomorrow do all 20. Probably. Some of our kids do, but she's probably not. So you're going to be wanting better behavior a little bit every day, expecting more of her when you provide the accommodations and the modifications that she needs so that she can be successful. And that's ultimately what our job is is to help those kids be successful. So now we need to think about what skills need to be taught. And you're going to tie this to the function matched intervention. So remember, the function was escape, right? She's escaping the worksheet. So the interventions that we said were, we're going to teach her how to ask for a break, ask for help, communicate her wants and needs, like what's hard about the assignment, and then giving assignments, adjustments and modifications in order to meet her where she is. So all of these things need to be taught. We talked about a few ideas for how to ask for a break without thinking, oh, my physiology is very upset right now. I think I will raise my hand and wait for 20 minutes for my teacher to call on me. And then I will say with my vocal voice, teacher, may I please have a break? And then the teacher said, we just came in from recess. You don't need a break right now. I just went through this whole process trying to do the steps that my teacher wants me to do, and I was shut down. I'm just going to leave without permission because I'm going to explode, right? And that's what you're competing with. And so we need to make sure that we're giving them the easiest way to get their needs met when they communicate, whatever form they communicate that in, right? So when Dakota asks for help and you ask her what she needs, she's going to say, I don't know. I mean, 100%, she's not going to know. So how do we teach her to know when she's looking at this assignment, what's difficult for her? And guess what? If it's a reading assignment and it's answering questions about the passages, and then you look at her beginning of year placement test, for curriculum, you're like, oh, wow, she has low fluency scores, or she didn't even pass the second grade end of year level language arts test. How am I going to know where she's at for third grade? How am I going to know where her strengths and weaknesses are? So you can go back and look at previous testing to see what are the holes for this person so that I can give them the support that they need for those individual strengths and weaknesses. All right, so now we're going to go to part 2. So the first behavior that we talked about is when we gave a worksheet, she was out of her seat walking around. Now we're going to go to part 2, and I know some of you guys already answered these questions, but please answer again because you guys were amazing. So now we're going to talk about the second part of the behaviors, which were the issues at recess, right? Her running around after the kids, pretending she's a monster, saying she's going to eat them, and then resulting in hitting, pinching, and pushing peers. So let's go through and talk about how we might find out how we can support Dakota with these behaviors. All right, so in the chat, tell me, what locations do these behaviors most often occur? Yep, recess, playground, unstructured time. Yep. So they said in the case study, it said most of the aggressive behaviors happen at recess, right? Good job, you guys. Let's see, recess and transitions. And then what is happening in the environment when the behaviors occur? Well, it's supposed to be fun, right? I remember going to my son's school, and he was at recess, and I was kind of spying on him to see, he has autism, and I was kind of spying to see what he was doing during recess. And when I saw what he was doing, it broke my heart for a number of reasons, but I'm going to share. So he had a very long, narrow playground, and it had a chain link fence. And he would walk against the fence with his hands on the chain link fence, and he would walk all the way down to the end and then all the way back down to the end. When his teacher called them to line up, he would go get in line. He didn't talk to anybody. Nobody talked to him. It was sad. And I went home and I cried because I thought, here I am, a special educator, and I can't even help my own child. At recess, he doesn't have any friends. He's literally walking back and forth on the chain link fence. Now, some of you guys might be saying, well, what's the harm in that? There's not really any harm in that. I'm sure he loved the sensory, right? I mean, there was probably some things that he enjoyed about that, but he didn't even have the skills to ask a friend to play anyway. And when he did engage in social behavior, he didn't engage appropriately. And so there was often problems. And I think I mentioned to you earlier, my phone would ring every day at 4 o'clock. And it was the principal, the teacher, the bus driver, the people down the street the people that we go to church with, like whoever, and I would get a phone call of all the terrible things my son did that day. And now that I know what I know, my response would be very different than it was back then. I would still say, I'm sorry, and I'm teaching him at home, and I'll talk to him and all of those things. But I would also say this, what are you doing to help my child? Right? Especially if you're in the school setting. What are you doing to help my child? He is socially not able to access his environment. Is he getting social skills groups? Is he getting play groups? Is he getting help making friends on the playground? Like, I'm doing my part, and I need you guys to do your part too. And there are a lot of things that we can do that we might not want to do, but we can do. And when we get to the end of this presentation, I think you guys will see that it's a little bit easier to do than we might think it is, right? So in the environment, having to engage in play, it's free time, it's not structured. There's not very much adult support out there, if any. I was on a playground a couple of weeks ago and there was no adult outside. And I was walking around and all the kids were coming up to me and telling me all their problems. And I'm like, whoa, I don't even work here. Like, I'm just here for one situation. There's a lot of social interactions that happen on the playground. And what better place to teach social skills than the playground, guys, right? And you're not just teaching Dakota, you're teaching all of those kids. And you're teaching Dakota with all of those kids. It's an amazing thing that happens. So I would argue that the same environmental variables from this morning still maybe contribute to her ability to access the playground. So maybe her lack of breakfast, maybe eating food that's not healthy, sugar crash, all those kinds of things. But then what other environmental variables are there at recess? What do you guys speculate could be happening? Let's get some ideas in the chat. What are some things that happen at recess? Chaotic, yes. I would say so. Kids pushing each other, yep, 100%. Bullies, yeah, no structure, yep. Cliques, yeah, nobody wants to play with her. Very good, Crystal. She probably knows that, right? You guys have all been in a situation, maybe, where you felt like the person or people you were with didn't really want you there. Your brain knows. Dakota's brain knows. When you look at brain studies, your brain knows if somebody else doesn't want to be with you or doesn't like you. Wants to play, but not sure she knows how to do it appropriately. Yep, kids are probably afraid of her due to some of the previous behaviors. Yes, Elizabeth, 100%. They're like, we don't want to be friends with her because she pinches us and pushes us and all of the things. And that really starts happening about 3rd or 4th grade where kids are like, nah, I'm not really sure I want to be that person's friend anymore, right? And so there could be a lot of environmental variables at recess. And how are we going to know? Unless we go out and see what's going on so that we can teach skills. All right, potential antecedents that may have set the occasion for the behavior to occur. Well, guess what? We don't really have data as to what's happening out at recess. So I want you guys to think about knowing the behaviors that are happening, knowing some of that stuff. What kind of data would you be collecting? And when would you take that data? And you don't need to answer in the chat, but when you're thinking about, I don't have all the information I need in this case study, so I might have to ask somebody, or I might have to go myself and really see what's happening at recess so that I can have that data so that I know how to help, right? And so I want you to consider what kind of data that you would need to get a measure of what's happening. All right, so antecedents. Well, her peers don't want to play with her, so she's not getting any good attention. But when she pretends like she's a monster and she's telling kids that she's going to eat them, and she chases them, and then she pushes them and pinches them and hits them, she might get some attention, right? There's no structure during recess. Anything else that could be a potential antecedent? I think we probably answered some of that in the last chat, where there might be bullies or cliques or other things going on that could potentially be antecedents, but how would we know unless we visually saw what was going on? We could see and hear what was going on. And I'll tell you what, kids are sneaky, and I didn't think elementary kids had it in them to be as sneaky as they are, but they're sneaky. And I can't believe the things that I see when I'm there observing that the teacher misses because the teacher has other things to do and I don't, right? And so I see things and hear things that maybe the teacher would miss because they're trying to bring all the kids in and they're answering a question and someone got a boo-boo and my phone's ringing and so-and-so's checking out. I mean, there's a million things, right? And so we miss things inadvertently. Okay, so after Dakota engaged in the behavior, after she hits, kicks, pinches peers at recess, what things happen as a consequence? What happens after that behavior of her engaging in those? You guys remember? Now I feel like that was so long ago that we read the case study. Yes, Elizabeth, we have to teach both sides how to support feelings and change behavior, right? Working with Dakota and working with the other peers at recess. Good. Yep, she goes to the office, Mindy. She gets to call her mom. She gets adult attention. Good. So she goes to the office and she sees the principal, right? And then the principal has her call her mom. And she gets away from the other kids. Students may be laughing and leading her to believe she's entertaining the kids. Yeah, that may be happening, right? She also gets to write a note to the other kids to say she's sorry, the sorry note. Good. Kayleen, yep, attention for her. Good. So she gets to speak with the principal. So she gets attention from the principal there. Whether it's good attention or bad attention, it doesn't matter if you're seeking attention. Can you guys ever think of a time, maybe even as an adult, where you were trying to get attention for something and you weren't getting it like you wanted it? And so you changed your behavior to get the attention that you were looking for? I think we probably all can, at some level, think of something that we did. And we usually end up being a little bit more obnoxious or forward or loud, like not as great behaviors, right? To get the attention that we're wanting. She also gets to call her mom. I'm not saying that any of these are bad. I'm just saying she's getting a lot of attention from different people. Then she's going to write the sorry notes. And then when she takes them into class, she's either going to hand them to the students and get attention that way, or maybe the class stops when she hands out her notes. I don't know. I don't love sorry notes in the first place, but we tend to use them. So she's getting some attention. So let me remind you guys, if the behavior continues to happen, if the behavior of hitting, pinching, pushing at recess continues to happen, then the consequences that follow that behavior are maintaining that behavior. That behavior is being reinforced, meaning that person gets out of those consequences what they need. Okay, if we are punishing behavior, that means that the consequence was not awesome, it's not what they wanted, and they stopped doing it. A really good example is when I went down a very steep hill on my skateboard, on my bottom, with my legs intertwined with my friend. And she was sitting on her skateboard and our legs were intertwined and our arms were intertwined, and we went down this really steep hill. Well, I'll tell you, the consequence for that is I spent hours at the doctor's office getting gravel scraped out of my flesh, right? Do you guys think I ever did that behavior again? I did never do that behavior again because the consequence punished that behavior from happening again, right? Maybe if we would have gone down and we would have had a great time and we didn't get hurt, I might have done it again because it's such a rush. That's so fun. Let's do that again, right? That consequence of that rush and having so much fun because of the behavior of going down on my skateboard reinforces me to do it again, right? So consequences are a big deal. I'm not saying we want to hurt anybody or punish anybody or take anything away from anybody. I'm saying that it's important for us to be able to look at behavior and look at consequences and understand why behavior keeps happening, and then be very, very mindful of the function and the function matched interventions and the antecedent interventions that we employ to support the student in learning new behaviors. That's what I'm saying. All right. What was said and done by others? I think that was on the previous slide. What did the student gain access to or escape by engaging in this behavior? What did Dakota get out of getting after doing the behavior? Yeah, sorry notes can seem like an activity. That's right, Crystal, and she may like it. I don't know. But yeah, Courtney, you're right. She gets attention for this behavior, right? She might have gotten out of classwork too. Good, Megan. That's a good point. But let's just go with the attention. She's getting a lot of attention from the principal. She got to call her mom. When she hands out the sorry notes, she's getting attention from her peers. And I would say it's attention because of some of the other clues of what's happening at recess, right? What is she doing at recess before she engages in pinching, hitting, and pushing? She's pretending she's a what? She's a monster. Meaning she's chasing kids saying, I'm going to eat you, not to escape the classroom, but probably to get some attention, right? And that's where we have to look at all of the clues that we have together. I like to have it on one sheet of paper because it's easy to kind of get off the right path because we're assuming something else. And that's why we can only take the data that we see and we hear or someone else sees and hears because it's really easy for us to assume. So if she weren't playing monster, or if she were acting out right before we come in from recess, right, it might be different. Elizabeth, she wants their attention, just doesn't know how to make it a positive interaction. Thank you, and you're 100% correct. She wants to play, and that's why she's chasing the kids, right, Courtney? So we have some skills to teach her, right? But right now, she's getting in trouble, but she's liking it, right? Is there a way to tell which of several consequences are reinforcing the student? Yes, Holly, and let's continue with this, and then we will definitely talk about that. All right, so she wants access to attention. She's getting peer attention. She's getting adult attention from the principal and from her mother. Probably when she calls her mother, the secretary is looking up her phone number or dialing the phone for her and then saying, thank you, sweetie, here it's ringing, right? We have to be nice to our kids. They're human beings. I'm not saying you shouldn't be. I'm just saying that there are little bits of attention in there that are feeding her behavior, right? All right. Do you think she's escaping recess? Yes or no? Okay, good. I love this. Yes, no, possibly. Why would you think she is not trying to escape recess? What clues in the information that I gave you would show you that she's really not trying to escape recess? Yeah, Elena, good. I love a hypothesis. Yeah, because she's playing. Yes, Courtney. She's running around chasing kids saying, I'm a monster. If she was trying to get out of recess, I would hazard to guess she would just walk up and punch someone in the nose and be like, okay, I'm going to the principal, right? But she is trying to interact and play. I love it. Good, Shauna. Trying to interact. Good, Courtney. All right. So do you guys think she's trying to escape class? What clues in there would tell you that she might be trying to escape class? You guys have any thoughts? Maybe just escaping the work. Okay. She may be. Do you guys see that when we're hypothesizing that taking all of that information that we have, Courtney, I love that. Depends on what's following recess, right? So if she were causing a problem in line on the way back into recess, knowing that it's time to do your presentation that she didn't finish or she didn't do, then I would say maybe she's trying to escape that. But generally when our kids are young, they don't have that forethought to think about in 22 minutes when I go in from recess, I'm going to have to show my diorama that I didn't bring, that I didn't do, right? And so looking at what is most probable in this scenario because of all of the information that we have, you're really probably looking at access to the attention. And did she get attention for the bad behavior? Yes or no? Yeah, she did. And even though the principal might have been like, now Dakota, you know what the rules are at recess, she's still getting attention and she's getting one-on-one rich attention. And I hazard to guess that her mom being a single mother and having some of the job obligations that she may have, she might not get as much attention at her home. And maybe she does, but she's clearly needing more here. All right, so the hypothesized function of the behavior, we're going to say attention from peers, attention from adults. All right, so how can Dakota get attention in appropriate ways at recess and maybe even not at recess? What's a function matched intervention for attention? I want attention. How can you help me get it appropriately? What are some things that you could put in place? No wrong answers, unless you say like go to the grocery store. Small group lunch, oh, Elizabeth, I love it. Yes, I love lunch bunch groups. That's amazing. You're creating relationships and friendships and connection. Our kids need connection. They need to feel like they matter, whether they're 5 or 15. They need to feel like they matter. We have a lot of kids that don't feel like anybody really cares. One-to-one check-ins, I love it. When you do the right thing, we can play a game. Good, help her make friends. Start a game at recess and ask her to join. Organize games. Yep. Encourage her to ask others if they'd like to play with her. I love that, Crystal. And even that, and adding to that, I'm going to go with you, Dakota, and we're going to ask some of your friends that we've been having lunch with if they want to play with you, and I'm going to help them play together, right? Group contingency, yes. I love that. Organized games, yep. Let her lead a game of chase or something. Love it. There are so many things we can do. Does it take you away from going to the bathroom during recess? Yes, it does. But it doesn't take long to really help kids learn how to interact if we teach them in the moment and we're not just working with one kid saying, hey, why don't you go out and ask your friends to play? And then she goes out and asks the friends to play and they all run away from her. We have to teach the whole situation or we're not teaching. It's not working. Directed play, good, good. I love it. You guys have great ideas and I love it. And they're all amazing, right? Ask a peer to play. Well, her peers don't want to. That's why you guys are amazing and smart. And you say, let's go outside and help her facilitate a game or lead a game or start a game. And I'm going to go help her do that so that everybody is successful and she can start making those connections with her peers, right? Maybe she gets a line leader opportunity, or she holds the door, or she takes out a special recess activity, or she takes out the ball for Foursquare, right? It can be any of those things. We have to teach her how to appropriately do those behaviors, but it's giving her an opportunity to get attention in appropriate ways. And not only that, but we teach the kids that when Dakota is holding the door open for us so that we can walk through, we say what? To someone holding the door to us, what do we say? Yep, we say thank you. And that gives her a little bit of attention. All of these little deposits of attention will help fill that bucket, right? And so teaching the classmates or the peers to also provide her some bit of attention. You guys could do a group contingency where the class earns special things and she gets extra things for that. And then they can say like, yay, Dakota, thank you, right? It doesn't take any time away from instruction. She's getting fed a little bit. Also, increasing your supervision while we teach skills. We have to put things in place at the beginning while we're teaching the skills, and then all of the supports can kind of fade away gradually because then they've learned how to engage in that behavior. Okay, so some antecedent interventions that are matched. No attention, peers don't want to play with her. There's no structure during recess. So we talked about some of those things. And then what skills need to be taught? These need to be tied to your function matched interventions. So we need to teach her how to engage in appropriate communication, social interactions, asking to play, playing appropriately, all of those things, how to get attention in appropriate ways. If she wants to play the monster, what's happening between her playing, them running and screaming, and then her hitting, right? Are they saying, we don't like you? Are they sticking their tongue out at her? She's not just doing that for no reason at all. I promise you. And we miss a lot of things, right? I worked with a kid at a school in West Valley. It was probably 2 or 3 years ago. And he threw a little piece of cement like this big at a kid and he was suspended. So the principal brought him to me, who was just visiting, and she said, can you work with him, please? I've got other things I need to do. So I start talking to this kid, and about 15 minutes into our conversation, he says, I said, why did you throw the cement? That's not a good question to ask, and you guys already know that. I don't know. right? So about 15 minutes into the conversation, he says, well, there's a bunch of cement that's broken up outside on the playground. And this other kid took this chunk of cement that was like this big and he threw it at my friend. And this little piece broke off. And so I picked up this little piece and I threw it back at him. Well, guess who got caught? So when I said to the principal, do you know that there was like a very large piece of cement thrown at his friend that he was with? The principal's like, no. So my kid got suspended. The other kid would have got off scot-free had I not spent the time talking to the kid that was getting suspended to figure out what actually happened. All right, to summarize, we have a lot of work to accomplish, but it really can be easy because in the beginning, we use everybody to help us, right? We use the teacher to accommodate those assignments, to put some antecedent interventions in place at recess, create buddies, create connections, help kids learn how to ask for help or ask to play at recess. Maybe play in the classroom a couple of times so that you can help facilitate that if you don't want to go outside and be cold, like me. Right? So in the beginning, we have as many people as can help and step in, because when you have all of that support in the beginning, I promise you, I don't put interventions in place for more than, I mean, maybe 3 to 4 weeks at most, but generally we have behavior controlled within a day or two. And then it's just continuing to teach those skills. So when we put things in place that are appropriate, they're matched to the function, they're matched to the antecedent, we're looking at consequences to see like, okay, why did our antecedents not prevent that behavior? What else can we do? Oh, there was no supervision at recess. Oh gosh, we really have to have that temporarily while the child is learning the skills that they need to be successful. So we want to implement antecedent and function matched interventions as much as we need to in the beginning, while we are simultaneously, which means happening at the same time as that, we are teaching or increasing skills. People with more skills have less problem behavior. It's a fact. It's written everywhere. If you have more skills, you're very less likely to engage in antisocial, problematic behavior. Skills, academic skills, social skills, behavioral skills, self-regulation skills, communication skills. There's a lot that you have to teach besides just the core, right? But you can do that while you're teaching the core. And so think of creative ways. We're teachers. Think of creative ways that you can implement some of those things that you know our kids are lacking within your content, within your classroom. And then once you do that, your interventions will gradually fade away. The kids don't need those anymore because they've learned the skills that they need to be appropriate and ask for the appropriate help that they need, whether it's on the playground, at recess, or if it's with a worksheet or anything else. You've taught those skills to that child. So to summarize, use the information that we've used in previous weeks. The last session is Thursday. It's a secondary session, but we're going to be doing a case study and working through things using a different format. So if you want more, it'll be different Thursday. So register for that and come. But use the information from all the previous weeks. I've really fire hosed you guys. And it's because I love you and I care about your success as a teacher. And I want the kids to learn and grow and be happy and successful in your classroom. And I want you to get in the car at the end of the day and feel like, hey, today was a good day. I do not have to go home and get in bed. I can go home and make dinner or do whatever I want to do because I'm sane maybe at the end of the day. I know that's asking a lot. So use the material from previous, collect data, not forever. You don't need 2 weeks of data. You need 2 days. Where's the behavior? What's happening? What's going on? What kind of interventions do I need? Right? Collaborate. Don't wait to start. You can put interventions in place now and then tweak them as you go if you're pretty sure you have a good handle on the function and the antecedents. Don't keep doing things that aren't working. I'm a behavior analyst. If I put interventions in place for a kid and there's not change by the next day, there's something going on, right? Where they're not implementing as much as we could, or there's more to the student than I knew, right? So if something's not working, don't just think that maybe Thursday night when the kid goes to bed, it will start working in the middle of the night and they'll come to school and he'll be fixed on Friday. Not going to happen. If it's not working, tweak it, fix it, email me, call me. I've talked to several of you guys and I love that. And then focus on teaching. Don't focus on data collection. Don't focus on punishment. Don't focus on a bunch of stuff that's not meaningful. Focus on teaching. We're teachers. What skills does this child or these children that you're working with not have? How can we teach that? What's appropriate? They may need specially designed instruction under the special education umbrella. It may be a child find situation. Then you have the RTI process in your schools where you can go through those tiered interventions and implement those interventions to show the data that might support that a child may need special education services. Meet the student where they're at. If they're only writing their name on the paper, then that's where we're starting. Maybe they can write their name on the paper and you can give them the answer to number 1 and they're good to do today. Maybe that's where they get. We are shaping better behavior and it is a series of steps. Just like learning how to crawl or walk or do anything else, we are learning by shaping that behavior, teaching those skills as they are getting better. Don't be coercive. Don't keep redirecting the kid to the worksheet. They're going to clock you. And that's not like a clock. That's like a punch clock, right? Don't keep redirecting them and being coercive to them to get them to do what you need them to do. Don't threaten, don't punish, don't coerce. There's 10 different kinds of coercion. And it's really easy for us to get caught up in that. Teach, love, support, have compassion and kindness, meet kids where they're at, help them to grow and learn how to navigate the school setting. And I think we are at a little after 5, I'm sorry, but thank you for being here, you guys. Just the fact that you guys show up every week and are willing to listen and learn and hopefully change your practice. I love it. And I appreciate you guys for doing so. I've had several emails from people who have been excited and tried new things. I love those emails. So please send them. I do read them. I do read what you guys put on the jam boards and your questions. And I'm just excited to hear all the great things you guys are doing. So email me. And then if you guys want to stay on for a few minutes, I will stay on and answer some questions.
Christine, thank you so much. I think I can speak for all of us that this entire community of practice has been amazing. And these are recorded just as a reminder, so you can go back and watch at any time and use the materials. And again, like she said, you're welcome to email her and get some more help if you need it. I have put in the chat, I will repost that right now. If you will please fill out this evaluation, we do look at all of these and and it helps to drive for our future professional development and how to help you better. So please fill that out. This one is specific to the primary community practice. There will be a separate one for the secondary. So if you are in both of those, I would please ask that you fill both of those out because I know that you got a little different information in each one.
You know, so-and-so.
So at this time, I will go ahead and open it up. If anybody has a question, if you'll raise your hand or you can unmute and go ahead and ask, and we'll do that for just a few minutes to respect Christine's time this evening and yours as well.
Yep. And thanks for everybody who commented in the chat. I know sometimes that's scary. Dina, do you want to turn off the recording for this part or do you want to leave that on?
Yeah, I will turn it off. Thank you.